Hey guys, I'm Grant. I'll just quickly run through a little bio here. I'm Grant, and I did a lot of cryptography and a lot of machine learning stuff growing up at the Berkeley Math Circle. But I really got into crypto in about 2016 when I met Richard Crabe actually at a poker tournament down in LA, which is super fun. He really sort of like took me under his wing and introduced me to a lot of interesting people in the crypto space. I interned at Numerai, yeah, in 2016 and had interests broadly in machine learning, quant finance, and crypto. And so that was sort of a very good introduction for me there. I definitely do think the model of sort of like crowdsource information, even similar to sort of like what we're trying to work on here, is quite strong. And I think there are a lot of interesting application spaces there. So after working at Numerai, I sort of like continued to have more of a machine learning and quant itch while sort of like keeping eyes towards crypto. I ended up working at a hedge fund down in the Bahamas, I think that next year, and then was most recently at Jane Street this past summer, doing some equities research, which was quite interesting. And then this past spring, I was at Polychain as a research intern, doing some systematic trading research, particularly on crypto derivatives and just exploring DeFi broadly. So that was also quite interesting. I definitely have more of like a quant and ML background, but I've definitely been thinking a lot about cryptography sort of more deeply and a lot of these DeFi protocols. I have been basically spending this past summer really, just reading white papers and playing around with protocols and talking to founders and sort of like building across a bunch of different verticals, which I'm happy to talk about. Thinking a lot about NFTs and DAOs with respect to sort of in-person communities is sort of like one vertical that I've been super interested in. I've built a lot in sort of like the people to vector space. And so you could think about like, personality embeddings or any of these sort of like high resolution embeddings of people and a lot of like traditional recommendations come through social graph work. But imagine if you can know a lot about a person through, a simple example is just looking at like your Twitter feed or something like that. You can almost see like a tweet to vec sort of embedding and sort of like like recommend sort of like-minded, Twitter people who are sort of tweeting about related things. And so if you get really good at this like high resolution embedding, you can match people either romantically or platonically, or people to job, or people to sort of like community. You can even have like DAO recommendations or something like this, like, hey, you are sort of doing a lot of interesting DeFi stuff, like, hey, you can sort of have almost like a top of funnel sourcing mechanism for Aladdin DAO or something like this if you sort of build high resolution embeddings of people that sort of like aggregate across a lot of that. Another thing that I've been thinking a lot about is TWAM stuff. And so, potentially adding like a privacy layer to TWAM, but even more broadly, I think that, as we've seen, the most capital efficient yield farming really does happen through aggregating, several yield farming platforms. And so I think we're going to see like optimal execution is not going to be built on, singularly like Uniswap or just any sort of like centralized exchange or whatever. It's going to be sort of like aggregated execution across a bunch of different exchanges. I think that's what optimal execution is going to look like. And so thinking about sort of how to source liquidity and sort of compare them across, DEXs and centralized exchanges, AMMs and limited order books, and sort of like trying to aggregate that all together for sort of optimal execution. I think that's something I've been thinking a lot about. In terms of being wrecked, I got wrecked in the pickle and the popsicle hacks, which was kind of interesting and fun. Also been thinking a lot about optimal liquidity provision on Uniswap. Spent a lot of time going through that, thinking about like ZKPs and homomorphic encryption stuff for sort of private trustless computation, and playing around with some of the MEV stuff and thinking about synthetic assets and oracles and custom hedging products, which it sounds like coming up with good derivatives for mining or just basically creating custom products for different peoples in the ecosystem are all pretty interesting to me. So that's just sort of a quick dump about some of the things that I've been thinking about. And super interested to meet everyone and join the community. Thanks.